This morning, Texas Republicans plan to get tough with school districts next year, wanting to ban them from using tax dollars to lobby legislators. One superintendent is here to explain why that is a bad idea. Over the last 5 years, he has led on a new baseball stadium for the Texas Rangers and the entertainment venues around it. This morning, Arlington Mayor Jeff Williams looks back on his final months in office. The pandemic put Texas in a recession, but we're ending 2020 with signs of economic improvement. What that means for the new year. And looking back over the last 12 months, how did Texas officials fare politically during the pandemic? From the governor to county judges, we will discuss.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you. What a year in politics 2020 has been. I'm Jason Whiteley. This is our last program of the year, and we are going to spend some time this morning looking back at how the last 12 months shaped policy and politicians in Texas. But we're going to begin looking ahead, 16 days ahead to be exact. That is when the Texas legislature reconvenes in Austin, and our first guest this morning, he chairs the House Democratic delegation. State Representative Chris Turner represents Grand Prairie and Arlington in Tarrant County. And it is good to see you as always, Representative. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you for having me, and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you as well. Let's start with the first order of business the House will take up, and that is choosing its next leader, a new speaker. Do you expect the Democratic delegation to support Dade Phelan, the Republican presumed speaker? Do you expect them to support him unanimously?
Yes, I do expect that, Jason. Representative Phelan had announced shortly after the general election that he had secured the support of the majority of the House, including a substantial number of the Democratic caucus. He is the only member running for Speaker. So I expect that he'll be elected unanimously Speaker of the House, just as speakers in the past often have been. And I think that we'll start out on a bipartisan footing, and hopefully we'll be able to maintain that, because we've got serious issues to address over these next several months in the Texas legislature.
Well, I wanted to ask you about some of those issues. A lot of people are saying, since this is going to be a session that's surrounded by the pandemic, that it might be a quicker session. Of course, the legislature has to get together to pass a budget at least. What are the other issues you expect to hit the floor?
Well, certainly the budget is the one bill that we're required by the Constitution to pass. It's a very important bill for our entire state. But I think this session will be dominated by responding to and recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a healthcare response that we have to address, where we have, unfortunately, the highest number of uninsured of any state in the nation. There's the economic recovery from the pandemic, where, unfortunately, millions of Texans have had to apply for unemployment insurance this year, and many are still not back on their feet yet. And then there's the budget impact. You mentioned the budget. We know that we will have less revenue to work with than we would have otherwise because of the economic impact of the recession. So, the pandemic, I should say.
Yeah.
So, for all those reasons, I think the pandemic and related issues are going to dominate the session. Other issues like the appropriate emergency authority for the governor to have and for local officials to have, I think will also be considered. And then finally, redistricting. This is the session we have to take up redistricting, whether that's in a regular session or a special session, depending on the timing of when Texas receives the census data. Regardless, it'll be an issue that's covered in 2021.
Yeah, that will be a huge issue indeed. You mentioned less revenue, and we saw the state comptroller, Glenn Hagar, come out and say there are signs of economic improvement. Do you expect, though, any cuts to the state budget because of less revenue?
I think that the job of the legislature is to figure out how to fund our core priorities in any budget year, and this year is no different. And just because it is going to be more challenging doesn't mean that we can shirk our responsibilities to fund the core services of government, starting with public education. We made tremendous gains in public education funding in 2019. We can't go back on that progress we made. It was took too long to get there and too hard fought to finally do it. We need to preserve those gains. As I say, we need to expand access to health care in this state. We also need to we really need to focus on higher education. We know that a lot of workers need to be reskilled and have opportunities to succeed in this rapidly changing economy, and that's going to mean access to higher education.
Let me ask you about the state party for a moment. The Democratic Party, the chairman appointed a committee to look at what happened in November of 2020 with the election, why gains were not made as many in the party expected. About 30 seconds left here or so. What would you like to see happen? What do you think needs to happen in the party to alleviate that?
Yeah. Well, I look forward to being part of that effort to review what happened in 2020 election. Obviously, we didn't meet expectations at the state legislative or other levels. And so we need to figure out what happened. And I think after any campaign, you look at what went right and what went wrong. But I think that it is vitally important that Democrats across Texas communicate what our core values are. And that the core value to me as a party is we increase opportunity for all Texans. That's the opportunity to have a good paying job, opportunity to send your kids to good schools, to get a good education, and opportunities to take care of your family's health care. And those are the things that we need to make sure the voters of Texas understand that we're fighting for in Austin and in Washington. We
will see how that goes. State Rep Chris Turner, good to see you again. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Jason. Thank you.
So let's zoom out now and look in the rearview mirror at 2020. Politically, economically, medically, this year has tested us all. The pandemic put Texas in a recession. The unemployment rate still stands at 6.9% at last check. But there are signs of improvement. Elon Musk made good on a promise and left California for Texas. Most recently, the computer software company called Oracle moved its headquarters to our state. So all that is an encouraging start to the new year. With us now to close out 2020, Ross Ramsey, the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Doing well here. How did these signs of improvement set up the legislative session, which gavels into session on the 12th of January?
It's a little mixed. I mean, you got to do a little palm reading here. The economy obviously took a real hit starting in March and April with the oil slump and then with the pandemic and the recession that it caused. These are some hopeful signs, and the question really is whether Texas comes roaring out of this thing, or it's just kind of a trickle. Right now, we've got some hopeful signs at the end of the year, and people are hoping it's going to roar back. We'll see how this goes as the year progresses.
Yeah, let's hope it does roar back here. You know, one of the biggest news stories that we all covered this year, Ross, was were the social protests after the murder of George Floyd. Do you think those have had a lasting impact politically?
I think that the election took a little bit of the momentum out of this. You know, when the George Floyd killing took place in June and the protests followed, it looked like maybe this is the time that we're going to see something on this. It quickly became a police versus liberals fight in the election season. Whether that's the proper way to characterize it, that's the way the elections characterized it, and became an attack on the police. If you can sort of unwind those politics and unwind all of that election noise during a legislative session or otherwise, then maybe you can make some progress on these issues.
All right, sounds good, Ross. Back to you in a moment. Thank you. Coming up, Arlington has experienced big changes over the last 6 years. Mayor Jeff Williams behind many of them. He is with us this morning to talk about his final months in office. And Republican leaders in Austin want to ban school districts from using public money to lobby lawmakers. But educators say don't take that at face value. We'll talk to a superintendent about it when Inside Texas Politics returns. If you haven't already made a New Year's resolution, consider this one. Subscribe to our podcast. It's called Y'all-itics. Every week, co-host Jason Wheeler and I crack open a Texas beer, and we spend time learning about a topic in Texas with different guests from all over the state. If you haven't listened yet, we already have 68 episodes in the can. Grab your phone if it's handy, and you can browse them all right now. Just aim your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. It will open a new window and take you directly to the entire library of our Y'all-itics episodes. While you're there, take a moment and subscribe as well. You know, May is going to mark municipal elections across Texas, everything from city hall to school districts. In Arlington, voters are going to elect a new mayor because the incumbent is term limited out. Mayor Jeff Williams ending his 6-year run after leading the city to build a new ballpark and high-end entertainment venue called Texas Live. The mayor is with us from his house right now to look back at his time in office. Mayor, it's good to see you again.
Great to be here, Jason.
You cemented Arlington as an entertainment destination with a new ballpark, with the Texas Live venue. But the city obviously cannot be complacent moving forward. What more do you think the city needs to do to sustain that?
Well, we are on a great trajectory here. And of course, we're the leader in tourism here in North Texas, but we have now become the sports capital of the nation. And our goal is to be the destination between Orlando and Vegas. So our next step is we are going to be building a 900-room hotel and new convention center. And then we also have been chosen as the site for the National Medal of Honor Museum. And that is moving ahead full steam. The design is going, and they are already raising money even before they've started the campaign. And I think that's a game changer for us and adds such depth there to the entertainment district. But something else that gets lost in the mix is that we have become a leader in job creation. And in fact, we have opened up a new manufacturing center right across from General Motors. They brought 2,000 jobs here from Mexico and Canada. And in addition to that, we have brought literally several thousand other jobs along the I-20 corridor. And probably some of those companies are the Summit Auto, Performance Auto Parts, to UPS, to Federal Express, to GM Financial, actually creating their largest employment corridor there along I-20.
But looking back over the last 6 years, Mayor, what do you wish you would have done differently?
I'll tell you, Jason, this is one of those that I just can't. It has been a dream time in which our citizens have come together, in which we've had an opportunity to work together. And I certainly hope that it has been seen that I'm a mayor that wants to empower our people and collaborate and work together. And that's why Arlington has that nickname, the can-do spirit, because people will work together and move forward. So the big thing that I wish is that I wish I had another 80 hours in each day. Because you'll see whenever you're working in a city, anytime you accomplish something, there are 30 more things that need to be done. It's never ending. But the thing I love best about being mayor is that I get to help people every day. And we truly can move forward and make things happen. And certainly Arlington has been a great example of that.
Mayor, I want to ask about your future as well. Just about 30 seconds or so left here. Are we going to see your name on a ballot again?
Jason, I don't know. I'm going to be praying and studying that. Right now, I'm very interested in the next 6 months for Arlington and finishing well. We have a unity council that's working on an equity plan right now. We are about to launch citywide the most successful transportation program in America and in our VIA. And stay tuned for that.
All right.
Looking forward to it. And then there's going to be a whole lot of businesses and people moving here to North Texas. And we want to be right in the middle of that.
Do you have aspirations for maybe a seat in the state legislature or seat in Congress?
I'm studying that, Jason. I really don't know. I really want to go where I can make a difference. I'm not after the position. I want to continue to try to be somewhere where I can make the most difference because it really is important for me to be able to work with people to be able to move a community forward. All
right. Mayor Jeff Williams from Arlington, good to see you again.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
As we said at the beginning of the program here, the Texas legislature reconvenes in 16 days. A priority for Texas Republicans there is to stop school districts from using public money to lobby lawmakers. Sounds legit on the surface, but educators say, read the fine print. That's revealing. So with us now is Doug Williams, no relation to Jeff. He is the superintendent of Sunnyvale ISD in eastern Dallas County. They're on the edge of Lake Ray Hubbard. Hey, Doug, thanks for the time.
Gladly, Jason. Great to be with you guys.
For viewers who are not familiar with this, why are school districts even sending lobbyists to Austin?
You know, I think the primary reason is school people really don't have time to be in Austin. During the 19 legislative session, I was actually serving as the chairman of the legislative committee for the Texas Association of School Administrators, TASA. And I believe I probably spent 15 to 20 days there. but you really just don't have time. You've got to be back home. You've got to be back home running your school. And it's not just school districts that are involved, but you're also talking about town councils and county governance as well that's affected by this legislation.
And give us an idea for Sunnyvale ISD alone. How much will Sunnyvale budget out for lobbyists?
In the last session, one of the things that was written into law is that school districts have to have a line item in their budget that allocates funds for lobbying purposes. And for the 2021 year, we are allocating $2,000 that will actually be spent to pay for these association fees and dues that will go toward lobbying. And Jason, we're talking about a $20 million budget, and we're spending $2,000. And so you kind of back that out and you figure what it does that translate to for the average taxpayer in Sunnyvale. We're talking about around 40 cents per household. And so it's very minimal burden to the taxpayers whatsoever.
And Doug, as you know, the Republican Party of Texas has made this a legislative priority, banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. On the surface, it sounds like it might be a great idea. But if the legislature does indeed ban them, what would be lost?
More than anything, the opportunity for school districts, towns, counties to have their voice heard. You know, there are a lot of issues that are discussed in a legislative session that directly impact our students and our teachers. And we just feel like we've got to have a voice there. And again, the opportunity for us to get to Austin is minimal. And the other thing that these governmental relations offices do is they provide tremendous information for us. That chain would be lost. It just makes it very problematic for our local taxpayers to have their voice heard. And really, Jason, in my opinion, it's about that. This is a local control issue from the standpoint that if my governing body, if my school board wants to allocate funds that go toward this lobbying purpose, the state really should not tell us that they can regulate that. If our school board that's directly elected by our taxpayers decide they want to allocate that, then they should. We've got to have the opportunity to have our interest and the things that are really pertinent to us seen about down in Austin.
No doubt. All right, Doug, we will be watching to see what happens with this. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
And thanks for having me on, Jason.
Coming up, a pandemic report card. How did Texas officials score in 2020? We'll go down that list next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross is back with us, and joining us each week is Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and of course Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Ross, we'll start with you and the pandemic report card on how Texas officials fared over the past 12 months or so. Let's start at the top of the list. Governor Abbott. I mean, he had a lot of trouble. He seems to kind of have stabilized that, hasn't he?
I think he stabilized. He was in pretty bad shape in July, and we did some polling at the Texas Tribune with the University of Texas, and his favorable, unfavorable ratings with Texas voters were going down. But I think the last couple of months of the year have been pretty good to him.
Yeah, indeed so. I mean, he was, Bud, the most popular elected official in Texas for years until he got dented with this. Who else are you looking at?
Well, and he sank, of course, because he believed the COVID, the prognostications were correct, the projections, and they have turned out to be right. He's turned out to be right. He took the power away from the county judges and mayors, so they've gotten to sit back and kind of throw rocks at the governor's mansion this whole time. But really, the county judges have come out looking really good. As the COVID situation gets worse here at the holidays, Judge Hidalgo, Judge Jenkins, the leaders who imposed strict rules have turned out to be the most popular. And
Bernadine, I think Bud's right about that.
I think so too, especially the county judges. And I'm even thinking about Potter County Judge up in the Potter County. She did extremely well. Nancy Tanner, because as a Republican, she even came out and said that she had tried to close the bars. And the owners opened back up and put out food trucks. But I think the Potter County judge did an extremely good job, as well as Clay Jenkins, the other county judges, and even mayors.
Yeah.
The mayors did okay. So I think local officials did very well.
Well, let's shift
Jason,
on.
the people who didn't come out well were the leaders who said, let business rule and let the virus run. The people who said the equivalent of some folks, we've got to let some folks go. I'm not going to name any names, but those are the people who didn't come out looking good.
And Ross, let's shift over to kind of expand this topic a tad here. The vaccine is rolling out right now, but if the pandemic, wears on for months and months into 2021, people are going to get tired of wearing the masks, I presume, at some point, if a vaccine's already out there as well, too. Politically, that's going to be kind of touchy, isn't it?
Yeah, you're in sort of a dangerous area here where we can see the end of the tunnel, but it's a little ways off, and it's going to be months and months before everybody who wants the vaccine or needs the vaccine gets one. There's going to be a period in there where there's some jostling and elbowing and a lot of COVID fatigue, I think.
And Bud, what do you think about COVID fatigue indeed? What do you think about Governor Abbott trying to navigate that?
Well, this has been a big test of public health messaging and what works and what doesn't. We're learning that what really works is to say, we don't know if masks work or not. We think they do. It looks like we need to wear them. Let's try.
Bernadine, final word this morning.
I think that you see more elected officials wearing masks. And because of that, you're going to see more support for it, because rarely, or if ever, you even see Governor Abbott in public without a mask. You even see Lieutenant Governor Patrick with a mask on. So I think you're going to see more acceptance because you see more of your elected officials with masks.
All right, guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Happy New Year to y'all. Ross, Bud, and Bernadine, thanks so much for the time and for a great year. Thank you for watching as well. We're back again next Sunday in January of 2021 for another episode of Inside Texas Politics. Hope to see you back here in 2021. Have a good rest of the year.